Oh, we should have brought more beers. I am Chris Malmberg. I'm 32 years old. I live in York, Pennsylvania. I think I've been skateboarding since 1998.
This here is my truck. I can haul all my kids in the back of this here truck.
My dad is kind of an auction-going like hoarder, so he collects all kinds of crap and buys like a lot of cheap stuff at auctions. Well, one of the things that he bought was a VHS tape that was made by Walker Skateboards, and it was like a how-to skateboarding video. So my brother and I would watch it all the time when we were probably like 10 years old or something, around that age. I don't know, it just seemed really cool. There was like all these dudes out in the street like doing something that a lot of people looked down on them for it, but it seemed like it was a lot of fun. So that kind of drew us towards it, I think. And then, so my brother would bother our parents about getting a skateboard, and they were like, no, you can't get a skateboard until you're, 12 years old, or whatever weird, number they came up with. So they waited until he hit that age, and they bought us both skateboards from like a Kmart or something. Like, I think I had a Nash and it had some kind of grip tape like pattern cut into it, and I remember the Nash logo being on it, and it kind of looked like a saw blade from like a table saw. It said Nash in the middle, and Mark had a Zorlak board, I think was his first one. So I give up way easier than that. I found that it's easier just to give up on something than it is to actually try it until you make it. So I either get lucky or I just give up on it, which is kind of a fun way to do it. But in the few like rare scenarios that I like worked really hard to do something, it's like, I don't know how else to, I mean, there's no way to like explain what that feeling is like. It's like a weird accomplishment type feeling, I guess, which you don't usually get out of many things in life. So it's like a unique, it's like a unique feeling, I guess. Especially if you get real lucky and like land it well and it like feels good and everything feels right about it and your feet are in the right spot and like, you didn't like do anything sketchy or like drag your heel or something. It's just like a weird feeling that you can't really, I guess you can't really explain it without, you can't explain it to someone that hasn't also felt it, I guess. I think it was probably like in 2011 or 2010. I had bought my first motorcycle that I was able to actually get on the road and like get it inspected and be legal to ride it and stuff. And I'd gotten my license and everything. So I was going out on all these like long motorcycle rides, usually by myself, but sometimes with Mark, because he had bought a bike around the same time. So I'd go on these long motorcycle rides and kind of get lost and go off on these like weird roads that I wasn't familiar with. On these long rides, I would start to come across these kind of interesting things like landscapes and old rundown buildings and that kind of stuff. And I thought maybe it would be fun to bring a camera with me. I grew up skateboarding with my brother and all of our friends, and we always enjoyed taking pictures of each other. And I always loved like the photography classes and stuff that I had when I was in high school. So it was kind of like a nostalgic thing for me. And again, it was like another solitary pursuit. It was something I could go out and do by myself. So I started shooting these kind of boring landscape photos, and fairly quickly grew tired of that. And I was like, well, I should put these photos somewhere. I'm like kind of embarrassed to put them on like Facebook or MySpace or whatever we were using at the time. I was like, I remember having this old Flickr account that I had from, when I was like, whatever, like 20 years old. So I started throwing a couple of those photos up there. This is when I came across the term street photography, and I kind of had this immediate interest to it. Some people were shooting, a lot of people were shooting these photos that included people, and they were shot in public places, and they were always shot candidly. Some of the photos that I saw were very literal, and they kind of were boring to me, like the landscape photos that I had been taking. But others were taking these everyday situations and shooting them in a way that it would kind of force the viewer to interpret the picture or to create their own story out of it. And I thought, well, that's interesting, because sometimes I see the same kind of things, and I don't think a lot of people notice them. Not that it's like some special thing that I have, it's not like some special gift that I have, but it's like anybody can see things differently. And I think, this ties so much into skateboarding, it's ridiculous. But like as a skateboarder, you go out, I think Matt Mumford talked about this in like a skate video, but like when a skateboarder goes out and they see, like a normal person goes out and they see a set of stairs, or they see like a handrail or a ledge or whatever. But when skateboarders go out, they just see skate spots. It's like they're looking at things completely differently than the average person. So it was like kind of the same idea. Like you're still going out in public places, things that most people see one way, you can see it a different way, depending on how you shoot it or how you approach it or whatever. And so like the older I got and the less skateboarding I was doing, the more I started kind of going into that. It was kind of like it was like a low impact way of skateboarding almost. I think that they're like those two activities are like so insanely similar that it's scary. So I think it's like a pretty natural progression to go from skateboarding into street photography.
Do you think that honed, do you think skateboarding honed your skill for that, or do you think it was like something like an innate thing that
I think,
had?
Yeah, I think, no, I think skateboarding probably, honed it, in that when you start street skating, you have to develop an eye for things. Like you have to be able to see things for their potential. And it's kind of the same scenario when you go taking street photos. Like one person might see a group of people standing around having a conversation, or like a group of people, shaking hands and talking to each other, where if you shoot it in the right way, it shows some kind of it can be suggestive. Like you can take a photo of something that suggests something outside of what's actually happening. So what one person sees is a very literal thing, and what another person sees could be a very suggestive thing that depending on how you shoot it, or for a skateboarder, depending on how you approach something, you can use it in a different way. I think skateboarding is very much like a social thing. Like you do it with your friends, with the people that you want to do it with the people that you want to be with. And it's something that you can all do together, and you can all kind of push each other. Even if it's in different directions, you're all still kind of pushing each other to try different things. And I think there's a lot of interests outside of skateboarding that you would share with people if you were a skateboarder and you were with those people. You share ideas with each other, and those things can kind of spread out, and then everybody's kind of got their own thing, but they still have this one common thing that they do together. So even if one of your friends gets into music and starts playing in a band, and somebody else wants to smoke weed all the time, and somebody else wants to be a painter, you all still have this one thing together, so you can come out of those separate worlds that you have and come together and do that thing.